Okay, so here we are for reading number 3 of an introduction to the thinking of Hongming, a forgotten Confucian scholar. And anybody who wants to listen to reading 1 and reading 2 that are now on YouTube, they can go to the description box and click on those links. Juan, any opening thoughts before we launch into it?
Yeah, sure. I would like to have a little speech because I want to relate the modern Hongming, well, modern relatively speaking, since he died in 1928, with the imperial epistemological education, if it's okay.
Please.
Okay. So you remember that the first time and the second time, I always remind everyone that the epistemological journey can be remembered very easily as the image of a synthetic house, of a simplified drawing of a house, and that the foundation of the house is can be perceived as a square, having the four books of the Sushu, the Confucius, the Great Learning, Ta Shui, the Mencius, and the Zhongyou. If you remember, the second time I was speaking of the Zhongyou, meaning centrality and everyday life, right? So to be centered on infinite awareness in your everyday life doings. Today, I would like to talk about the other corner of the Zhongyou, not the Zhongyou, but of the house, the foundation, and it's about the Ta Shui or the Great Learning, because the Great Learning is much more about the systematic explanation of the epistemological journey. And I would like to introduce it with a statement which is quite famous in Chinese statecraft. And that famous statement is the only two endeavors of the state are rituals and war. And here, why am I speaking of rituals and war? Because war is not only kinetic war, as we would spontaneously understand everyone, but the first war is the epistemological warfare. And when the Imperial Academy has been created in 124 BCE, it was precisely with that idea of epistemological warfare that the Chinese rulers had in mind. And I would like to remind
When was it created? The Imperial Academy?
124 BCE. Okay, so I remind that Confucianism, or to be precise, Ru Jia, the school of the scholar, has been chosen as imperial ideology 12 years earlier in 136 BCE, and in 124 BCE, 12 years after 136 BCE, the Imperial Academy has been created with in mind that epistemological warfare, because once again, for Chinese statecraft, the only two endeavors of the state are rituals and war. And if you remember the triangle above the square is about the control legacy of the Zhou dynasty having ruled between 1046 BCE and 256 BCE. And that part, which is the roof of the house, is more for the behavior. Okay, so the square, the foundation, is for the mind development or the epistemological development, and the roof is about the behavior, or maybe it's better said, the exemplary behavior coming from the Zhou dynasty as understood by Confucius. And in the exemplary behavior is, let's say, codified within 5 classics: the Yi Ching at the center, the Shu Jing, the book of songs, the Shu Jing, the book of documents, the rituals. But here, rituals, once again, I repeat because it's important. Rituals is most of the time understood as robotic behavior or imitation. Here, rituals has to be understood as the right behavior because you have the right epistemological development. And the last classic, the Chun Chu, the Spring and Autumn, a historical chronicle of the Lu dynasty, But what is important are the three philosophical interpretation. The interpretation by Gu Liang, which is centered on rituals precisely. The interpretation by Mr. Zhou, centered on realpolitik, or geopolitics if you prefer. And the last one, last but not least, the Gong Yang, centered on universal history. Okay, because once again, the epistemological development, the foundation, is to produce aristocratic man, and those aristocratic man is the essential ingredient to make the everlasting civilization. So I want to introduce very briefly the Dashui, the great learning. Once again, the Analects of Confucius, the great learning, Dashui, the Mencius, and the Zhongyong. I talked a little bit about the Zhongyong last time. Today, it's about the Dashui, the great learning. So I would like to read a short one paragraph from the introduction by Professor Robert Eno, from his own translation of the Dashui. The great learning is the beginner's handbook, okay, in how to perfect oneself ethically and become capable of transforming the world into a universal utopia. Here, universal utopia, of course, has to be understood as the everlasting civilization built by aristocratic man, and the practical tool to protect that everlasting civilization is the empire. Of course, here you have don't understand the word empire in the Anglo-American meaning, okay? Because in the Anglo-American meaning, empire is a very negative word, not in the Chinese context. It shares with the thought of all early Confucianism a boundless optimism about the unlimited potential for human self-perfection and social transformation. The opening sentence of the text set the standards for that transformation. It pictures perfect virtue in individual leaders of society as the engine that can rejuvenate the human society. The aristocratic man, capable of creativity, of discovery, of playful exploration, and of inventivity, right? So it pictures perfect virtue in individual leaders of society as the engine that can rejuvenate human society, entering the behavior of others as though inhabiting the world with a fresh population, reaching a state unblemished by immorality. This vision is then broken down into 8 stages of personal and political development that are the practical means to accomplish it. If the end goals seem excessively idealistic, the stages are thought through pragmatically, identifying a small number of key principles for self-cultivation and offering ways to think about them that are down to earth. Ideas that can motivate the sustained effort and that address key features of personal and social maturity in ways that can help people leverage personal discipline and become socially authoritative. In this way, the great learning, 大学 in Chinese, is not intended as ethical theory. Okay, it's not for talking. It is a self-help manual for the aspiring ethical actor, or 君子. Okay, 君子, once again, the son of a lord, the gentleman, the exact equivalent of the Platonic aristocratic man, the term that denotes persons of recognized moral authority and accomplishment. Why the utopian goals of the text expressed in its initial sections and portrayed again at its close may seem unrealistic to us, the central portions of the text can and were used as a practical guide by generations of people in traditional China. Okay, and when we talk about by generations of people, it means at least at the elite level, between 136 BCE and 1912, right? So it was about for practically 21 centuries, and constitute moral exercises that any person can, with profit, consider. The theoretical basis of this training lies in the claim by Mencius that all people share an innate sense of morality that is largely identical in all of us. Once again, the upper trigram. Okay, we talked last time that because of different culture, it is absolutely normal that there are real differences, and there's nothing wrong with that. In the animal kingdom, meaning sense perception, intellect, and social sophistication, in the sense that what is polite in the West can be perceived as impolite in the East, and vice versa, right? But at the upper trigram, meaning the timeless form of beauty, goodness, and truth, there it is truly universal, largely identical in all of us, East, West, North, and South. Without debating this proposition in detail, it is probably not controversial to grant that for some range of dispositions and responses that we customarily view as ethical, such a dependent attachment to parents and tendency to obey them, people, like other species of conscious organisms, share intrinsic characteristics that uniformly predispose them in certain directions. Nor are many of us likely to object to a modification of the claim by Mencius that argues that within any culture, a more extended set of ethical disposition may be acquired through early processes of socialization to such a degree that by the point that a child is ready for the type of formal education provided by the great learning, those dispositions may present to the individual as if they were spontaneous, universal to all people, and therefore innate, okay? So I can say that in China, traditionally, as I has received that education, the great learning, the Ta Shui, is given as early as 3 years old, as it was in my case, okay? So it is truly a beginner's book. And I said during one of my presentation that there is the animal machine of the intellect, which is the second line of my development, which becomes very powerful when most of us, yes, reach the age of 2 years old, because at the age of 2 years old, most of us will begin to talk. And the machine of the intellect, part of the animal kingdom, will become extremely powerful and rooted from the age of 2 years old because of articulate language. And 2, 3, 4 years old is the perfect moment to introduce the great learning, the Ta Shui, because it is the time to start the epistemological development, meaning the development on the centering on infinite awareness. Because once again, what is balanced in a education is precisely to give full development to the intellect, okay, slide 2 of the animal kingdom, but to avoid the intellect to take the throne, if I may use that metaphor, you have to introduce the infinite awareness at about the same time that the intellect is becoming to be powerful. So there you will get a balanced society, because a society will be constituted by balanced people having a powerful animal intellect. And of course, the human animal intellect is much more powerful than the intellect of a cat, a dog, a goat. Hence, it is absolutely vital to introduce the epistemological development. And when I say epistemological development, it's not intellectual, okay? It's not the second line. It's the vertical line. And once again, I bother everyone who listens to me. by showing again the image of the king, okay? The Chinese character, 3 horizontal lines with 1 vertical line. That the vertical line is the epistemological development, okay? And the horizontal lines are the different levels that the intellect wouldn't be capable to go in a healthy manner if you have the vertical line developed at the same time, okay? So the offer of the Confucianist education is that if you don't want to get an unbalanced society, well, you need not to have imbalanced people, but rather balanced people. It means that the horizontal dimension has to be developed at the same time that the vertical dimension. Okay, so intellect versus awareness. That is the big lesson of the Tashui or the great learning. So I wouldn't finish with the 3rd paragraph of Eno's introduction. That is the raw material on which the great learning seeks to build. The combination of dispositions to act towards other in certain ways that society conventionally judges to be good, a picture as innate characteristic of our cognitive minds and affective feelings, a combination that Confucian texts refer to as the heart, sin, and our hearts understood to have been structured by a divine force. Because once again, epistemological development. And we always say that the sophist or the fake democratic man is precisely at the heart, okay? Why? Because if there is no one that will take him by the hand to bring him to the exit of the cave and say to him that he has more step to go on vertically, he would end badly. Okay, so that is why that is the crossroad, that is the heart. And our hearts is understood to have been structured by a divine force. Well, someone has to say it to the guy at line 3, because if not, he would end up being a sophist or fake democratic man. And that divine force in Chinese is called Tian or heaven, often translated as heaven, which endows us with these dispositions for a purpose, the creation of a perfectly ethical world. Given this theory, the great learning's basic message to those who use it as a self-help guide is simply this: you already know how to be moral. All you need to learn is how to turn that knowledge into action. That is what the great learning can teach you. And I stop here, and I just want to say that the great learning there's a very short text, and after that you have 11 explanation on the text. I'm not going to read the 11 explanation tonight, of course, but I just want to mention the 11 stuff concerning the main text, which is just 1 page in the original text, okay? So it starts with what is called the 3 guidelines. The first guideline is making one's bright virtue brilliant. So it takes as a premise, as a statement, that everyone has a bright virtue, okay? And that bright virtue is only a metaphorical, a poetic way to say the vertical line of the king, okay? Infinite awareness. So everyone has it, but you have to be aware that you have it, okay? That is why you already know how to be moral, but you have to be aware of it, and you have to activate it. Second guideline, making the people new. Making the people new, it means you have to be new yourself, meaning that most of the time, because once again, it's a very practical manual, people are not new because they are prisoners of past negative emotions. And those past negative emotions will make them return to the same stupid actions or to the same stupid thoughts that are haunting them. Okay, let's say like that. So making people new, beginning with oneself, obviously, is to precisely how to get into contact with that verticality, with that episteme, with that infinite awareness, with that bright virtue, in order that the negative emotions would not make you prisoner. And third principle, or the third guideline, is coming to rest in the highest good. Okay, so it's a consequence of guideline 2. Okay, once you discover that it is that vertical journey, well, start on that vertical journey, and you will always be refreshed, rejuvenated by resting in that highest good, that vertical journey, or that episteme, or that infinite awareness. And the second part of the text is about the A stages. The A stages can be divided in two, because step 1 to 4 is what I would call the practical exercises, and 5 to 8 is the practical, or the sphere of interactions where you can put your understanding into action, right? So it's easier to remember like that. The stage 1 is to put your personal affairs in order. Okay, it sounds very simple. Of course, when I learned it, I was 3 years old. But of course, if an adult read that, put orders in your affairs. It can be if you have alcohol problems, if you have drug problems, if you don't work, if you sleep at home all day. Maybe you need to put some order on those stuff before thinking to go further into your epistemological development. Okay, it's very down to earth. Put order in your personal affair. 1, 2. Extending your knowledge and understanding. Okay, so it means reading philosophy, sciences, art, psychology, discussing with interesting people, having your own reflection, etc. 3. Are you sincere? Okay, are you sure that you want it? Is it why do you want to go into that epistemological journey? Okay, so you see, it's very practical, nothing esoteric or mysterious. And 4, balancing the mind. Okay, balancing the mind, once again, is a reminder of this stuff. Okay, meaning that you have the intellect, but you also have the vertical journey of infinite awareness, meaning episteme. Those are the 4 stages. Okay, put order in your personal affairs, extending knowledge and understanding. Are you sure to be sincere? Balance your mind. From that, you have 4 spheres where you can put that understanding into action. 5 is cultivate yourself. Sometimes it's translated as refining one's person. 6 is put order in your family, and also the sphere of interaction. 7 is assist in the governance of the state. And 8 is to bring peace to the world. Of course, not everyone will reach to the level of bring peace to the world, or to assist in the governance of the state, or even not put orders in your family, but at least everyone will reach to the 5th proposition, which is to cultivate yourself. So you see here that it's very, very, very down to earth, contrary to the last time about the Chongyong, which is something more mysterious about infinite awareness, and which require some exercises of meditation that we will say in the West, but I would say to be introduced to the notion that there is not only the second line of mind development called the intellect or cognition, meaning wording, conceptualizing, imaging, or organizing. There's something that would make you capable to have, to move back and to be capable to look at your mind. And the fancy expression is meta representation, okay? Because at the second line, the first line is sense perception. The second line is the intellect. The third line is social sophistication. Those three lines, which are given by nature, which is the animal kingdom, and there's nothing wrong in that, will give you a representation of the world. And because you have a human body, you wouldn't have a certain representation of the world. And because you have a human body, let's say, influenced by Chinese culture, you wouldn't have a certain representation of the world that would be a little bit different from a human body influenced by, let's say, American culture, right? So that is the animal kingdoms with its subdivision. But the other stuff that is the vertical line is precisely that episteme infinite awareness. And there it is absolutely the same for everyone. So I think that that's all. I don't want to go further for that tashui because my intention is precisely to give a short introduction of the tashui, the Chongyong. Chongyong has been done last time. Tashui is for today. And we will see if we will have time for the other two corners about the Analects of Confucius and of the Mencius. I stop here for today.
That's lovely, Quan. Thank you.
My pleasure.
You know, when you read the words of some of these people who consider themselves high aristocrats in their efforts to sort of rewrite how humanity should be, like Annie Besant, I was just reading some of her works. She really she thinks that she is like the top of the possible epistemological journey, or almost there, right? Like, and there's no love in her heart, like that common quality that Mencius got across, that, you know, when anybody would see a baby crawling on the side of a well, and they would feel apprehension to go and protect the baby before it falls into the well. That's like a sign that we all have this common attribute. That's not there in, like, there's this misanthropy, this hate of self, this hate of humanity that is subtle in an emotional state. And I don't think that somebody like Besant would be able to even be self-aware of that intellectually, but it's clear in terms of like how her thoughts are constructed and her actions and works are constructed. So it really is like this low level, like you said, a timocrat that's self-delusional, that is not aware of like what they don't have. Now, how to actually bring somebody into an awareness of what they're lacking that they're not aware of, that's the whole that's the whole struggle that I think we're all
that's a whole
we all
adventure.
have part of that.
Yeah, and that's a whole adventure if that person did not receive that education at 3 years old. Okay, it depends on the power of his intellect precisely. Because I'm not against the intellect, but the intellect, if it has not been accompanied by infinite awareness from a young age, would be more difficult to deal with later on.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Richard, what's your thought?
Well, it's just that the American founding fathers, their vision was that it would be the aristocrats, the wise people, the educated people who would like volunteer to be in Congress and president and govern wisely, which has parallels to what you're talking about in terms of, governance in China. But they were all terribly disappointed by how it turned out, that instead everybody goes for their own self-interest in government rather than fulfilling the vision. So.
No, that's a great point. And they should have listened to Benjamin Franklin when Franklin was trying to hammer in the importance of studying the Confucian meritocratic system. That's what Franklin was trying to do from the 1750s, 1760s. And he knew what other people didn't understand, that if you don't get this and institutionalize it, you're setting yourselves up for some big problems. So yeah, noble endeavor, but misfire. All right, let's do a little screen share here. Cool. There it is. Okay.
We were at page 13 last time, but I would like to suggest to go back half page because it cut the paragraph. Okay, if you go to page 12, according to me, I don't know if it's page 12 for you, but it's as Ku elaborated in Appendix B to his translation of the Chongyong. I don't know if you. Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah. We read that half page last time, but I would say that it's worth to lose 3 minutes to read it again.
Sure, sure. Now I don't know, Richard, you want to read, or who would like to read today? No, okay.
My eyes.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah. I can read. I never read. I want to read. I'm gonna read. Okay. All right, here we go. As Ku elaborated in Appendix B to his translation of Zhongyong, in order to think aright and find out what is morally right and true, we must first put and keep the state. Oh, sorry. We must first of all put and keep the state of our whole nature and being in a proper and well-ordered condition. The more fully our whole nature and being is developed, and the more perfectly it is kept in proper, well-ordered, and well-balanced condition, the more exact, just, and true will be the product of our thought. That is, nearer the idea in our mind or the product of our thought approaches that which the thing we think about really is, as it exists by the law of its nature, and in this way brings the action which we take nearer to that which is in unison with the universal order and system of things in the universe. In fact, what we think then is true, and what we do is just. That's beautiful. What a great quote. Now, this state of proper order and balance of our whole nature and being is the vital state of Zhonghe. Here, Ku takes the Chinese word zhong to mean our central inner self, and thus our true self. It corresponds nicely to what Arnold calls, quote, the central clue in our moral being which unites us to the universal order. Ku rendered the word he, which is usually translated as harmony, as moral order. This translation makes good sense here in reference to the appropriate expression of our emotions in accordance with ritual and social decorum. Thus, when our whole nature and being are attuned to a well-ordered and balanced condition, when our true moral being and moral order are realized, the universe then becomes a cosmos, and all things attain their full growth and development. Another keeper. These quotes are great.
Maybe I would like to interrupt here. This translation makes good sense here in reference to the appropriate expression of our emotions in accord with ritual and social decorum. Okay, once again, I want to say that here ritual and social decorum have to be understood as the natural, spontaneous, and healthy behavioral expression when your inner reality is shining. Okay, what were the 3 guidelines? Make your inner virtue bright, and etc., and abide in the highest good and renew people. Because I know that it's maybe the 3rd or the 5th time that I say that, but probably not the last time. Rituals is so much associated in the West with robotic behavior and stupid imitation that I have to repeat that again and again and again. Okay, each time that you read rituals in Confucianist text or in Ku text, it's always the healthy, spontaneous behavior because your inner virtue is bright and active. I stop here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it every time I read this, it just reminds me so much of 1 Corinthians 13, where the if I speak in the tongue of angels or men, but I have not love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I give all that I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship, that I may boast, but I have not love, I gain nothing. And the whole thing is an homage to like authentic love. So you can do all the right things physically, ritualistically, but if it's not being animated for the right inner reasons, then it doesn't really carry the substance that it would if you were doing it for the right reasons and you really thought it through. So yeah, that's really what it just reminds me of in a bit more detail.
Yeah. Always, what is inside, is it present? Is the substance present when you have a a behavior that can be observed. Okay,
Mm.
so of course, here is the test for the fake democratic man. Okay, because a fake democratic man is capable to imitate the right behavior or a nice word, but is there some substance that is at the foundation of that nice word or that nice behavior?
Mm-hmm. Back to the text. Second, the key to all moral action is the moral sense that inspires a person to fulfill his moral obligation as a free agent, aside from ulterior motives for profit and fear of punishment. Ku identifies this moral sense, this sense of honor and truthfulness, as the heart of Chinese religion of good citizenship. It is essential to realize our true being. It is also the universal foundation of all true social orders. No society, no human organization or institution can truly function without this sense of honor and duty. As Ku iterates in the spirit of the Chinese people, a society without the sense of honor in men and without morality in its politics cannot be held together, or at any rate cannot last. In Ku's view, the true foundation of such social institutions as marriage is not the allegedly sacred social contract sanctioned by legal or divine authorities. It is not even the passion of love between a man and a woman. It is rather the law of gentlemen and good manners, the sense of honor that inspires the man and woman to recognize and respect the duty and dignity of their being and belonging together to the same family and community. This is why Confucius says, the law of gentlemen, which is the essence of moral law, takes its rise in the relation between husband and wife. Quote, but in its utmost reaches, it reigns supreme over heaven and earth, end quote. Even for merchants and gamblers, unless all parties recognize and feel themselves bound by a basic moral sense to honor their contracts, no gambling or trade would be possible. As an old Chinese saying puts it, there must be honor even among thieves. Without a minimal sense of honor and trust, it is impossible, even for the gangsters, to work together. Thus, with no or inadequate sense of honor and duty, there can be no true social order, for the society could be held up only by the use of force and fraud. Again, pure Plato too, eh? It's great.
Yeah, I am very happy that you mentioned Plato here, because honor is an aristocratic word for something that is used in ordinary lexicon, let's say. And in ordinary lexicon is justice. Okay, when you speak of honor, it's the aristocratic way to say justice. How in a relation, justice can be maintained.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'd like to say that just in the Bible, it's that's kind of like the Ten Commandments. You know, don't steal, don't lie. Um, I don't know if it doesn't say to trust, like you have to earn people's trust, but I think it's inferred in the Ten Commandments as well.
Yeah,
It might be implicit, like
Implicit,
inferred, like
yeah.
you said, but definitely Jesus's, or the answer recorded by that Jesus said when asked by a rabbi which of the Ten Commandments do you prefer the most, and he answered none of, like, he didn't answer any of them. He answered love your fellow, love your neighbor, love God as you love yourself, or love God and love your fellow man as you love yourself. And so that if you do those things, if you actually can do that honestly, then you will implicitly do all of those things that are formalized in the on the big list of 10, right?
yes.
Plus, practicing, you know, trust and honesty, and that
Yeah.
it's self-evident. Like you can, you could show that it works. Like you could take a group of people who live in the jungle and they screw each other, and then another group who they abide by certain principles, and then come back a couple years later, you know, see how they both groups progress. And
well, it definitely
well,
takes work. It definitely takes work. I don't know how self-evident it necessarily is right off the bat, but I agree with you that it takes work.
I would like to say that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to remind everybody of the terminology in the Declaration of Independence. They pledge their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor.
Right.
Yep.
That's good.
Yes. Yeah. I would like to say that the Ten Commandments can be understood as ritual in the high meaning of the word, okay? In the sense that I said that rituals is the spontaneous, healthy behavior when you have the substance inside you. So the Ten Commandments can be interpreted at that high level in the sense that it is not necessarily a list to be obeyed robotically if you have the substance inside you. So if you have the substance inside you, it's simply the spontaneous shining forth of your being. But if you don't have the substance, it can be a list to be followed robotically, as the word rituals most of the time is understood as a robotic behavior. Maybe that understanding comes very naturally from the fact that less and less people have true substance in them, because often what we believe is a projection of what we are inside.
So it's almost like people that are on a lower level of epistemological development, they need in a way they need that repetition, or else they go by the wayside. Like, even though they don't understand it, they have to be told. At least that's my experience.
I am very happy that you say that now, because it gives me the occasion to repeat what I said at the beginning. Okay, in an ideal society, the child would have been introduced to infinite awareness, to the vertical journey at 2 or 3 years old. So normally, in a normal and healthy society, rituals would be the spontaneous shining forth of the substance that has been developed since 2 years old. And what is happening now is that it has not been developed from very early ages. And that's why people think that rituals or the commandments are robotic behavior or imitation. That is precisely the nexus of the problem.
So we're in the middle of the show, right? In this world, we're not in the beginning; we're in the middle.
Yeah. Well, you have 5,000 years of recorded history. I don't know if we can say that the middle, because I'm rather optimistic. I think that we can have hundreds and hundreds of thousand years of recorded history. So 5,000 years on 300,000 years, it's nothing. Nothing. So,
well, if you want to fix, if you want to fix the world's problems, you can't. Ideally, you'd start in the beginning, like with the children. But what about the ones that are they're all messed up already? What about them?
But if you can manage that, the next generation would be much healthier. For example, they would be capable to deal with the old schnock. Believe me. Because the old schnock would be weaker when they would get older. So if you get a healthier new generation, it would be very easy for them to deal with the new situation. And they would be nice with the older people. So it would not be a intergenerational fight if they are truly healthy inside.
Back to the text. All right. But a social order based on force, that is, police or military forces, and fraud cannot really function, or at least not in any sustainable manner, because it would implicate infinite snags of vicious circles. It will have to use greater and greater number of guns to put down another gun, and bigger lies to cover up old lies. Beautifully said, so simple. Yeah. Such vicious circles indeed are characteristic of those individuals or nations caught in a mess or deadlock who strive to escape such a mess or deadlock by means of some clever dodges, contrivances, or schemes of reform, which instead of salvaging them only brings them into greater mess and deadlock. In light of Confucian teachings, there is only one true way of escape from such deadlocks and messes. Quote, to get back the evenness of your temper and your calm judgment, to get back your true self, or in the words of Confucius, to find the central clue and balance in your moral being. In other words, the ultimate solution to all social and political deadlocks must be a moral solution. It consists in the moral reform of one's own being and person, which must precede all and every other reform, end quote. It is only when a person or a nation of people have recovered and got hold of the truth of their being will they be able to, quote, see and understand the true and exact state of affairs, and to see and do what is morally just and right. It is only then that, quote, not only men and things, but the whole universe, governed as it is by the same moral order, by the same order and system of things, will respond and obey. And whatever things are about and around such a man will at once again arrange themselves into a harmonious and cosmic order. Oh, it's glorious, glorious stuff.
I have a question.
Mm.
Would you say President Xi is bringing China back to Confucianism?
Yes, but it was not President Xi. It was a state councillor named Wang Huning. Wang is his family name, W-A-N-G. Huning is given name, Huning. And he has been selected by President Jiang Zemin 30 years ago when he was a young man of 28, because he was absolutely brilliant and the archetypical Confucianist genius, if you want. And he served under many presidents, and he never participated to what I would call the lowly politicking. Okay, and the other ones would protect him because they are perfectly aware that he is the embodiment of the noblest Confucianist tradition. And President Xi now gave him the number 4 position in the standing committee of the Politburo. If you know a little bit the Chinese political system, the standing committee of the Politburo, comprising about 7 to 10 people, depending on the government, is the true rulers of China. Okay, those 7 to 10 men rule China. So Wang Huning is the number 4 of them in this government, and President Xi is simply keeping on the rejuvenation of the Chinese civilization, which at its core is Confucianist. Okay, once again, the house, the epistemological journey, and the behavior as the shining forth spontaneously when the foundation or the inner reality, the substance, is present.
Is this the first time that Wang Huning has attained a position in the Politburo, or was he already in there prior to this?
He was there since President Xi Jinping, meaning 2012, and but he was also at the central committee. Okay, because you have the standing committee of the Politburo. Under that, you have 25 people, which is the Politburo. And under that, you have the central committee of the what I prefer to call the Chinese Civilization Party rather than Chinese Communist Party. And Wang Huning has always been in at least within the first 200 rulers. Okay, but he became part of the, let's say, 10 rulers since President Xi Jinping, meaning since 2012.
Excellent, great. All right. Chinese religion of good citizenship, a royal road to rational democracy. The Chinese religion of good citizenship is Ku's rendering of Junxi
Chitao.
Junxi Chitao, i.e. the way or law of gentlemen in Confucian teachings.
Sorry to interrupt you, Matt. May just wrote in the chat that Wang Huning wrote an excellent book in 1991, who has been published in Shanghai. and he predicted exactly what happened to America now 33 years ago in that book.
Fantastic. I see that. Thank you, May. I'm gonna pick that up as soon as this reading is over. I'm just opening it now so I don't forget it. All right. Okay. So the Chinese religion of good citizenship is Ku's rendering of Junxi Chidao, i.e. the way or law of gentlemen in Confucian teachings. The essence of good citizenship is the great principle, code of honor and duty, which Ku held to be the best translation, Dai Mingfeng, an idiom used by the Japanese to introduce the Confucian teaching of loyalty during the Edo era. I guess that, oh, that's Gu's writing. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Maybe a detail.
Yeah.
Okay. The Edo era was the era controlled by the shogun, right? Because Edo was the old name of Tokyo between 1603 and 1868. And maybe some of you know that in 1868, the Imperial House of Japan came back to power with the Meiji reform, because between 1603 and 1868, Japan was ruled by a general, okay, because shogun is the Japanese pronunciation of a Chinese character. Jiang simply meaning general. And here, Da Yi Ming Feng is something really from the heart. But during the Edo era, it has been more used in the robotic meaning, okay? So I'm absolutely delighted that this expression is put back in its real context of epistemological development and not as a catchphrase for demanding loyalty from your subordinate.
Okay. Cool. Here, Ku translated Dai Yi as the great code principle and Ming Feng as honor and duty. Now, the word Ming carries the basic meaning of name and title, which are often associated with certain roles, ranks, and positions. Thus, Ming may indicate also the repute, fame, or honor in serving such positions. The basic verbal meaning of feng is to cut apart, to divide, and accordingly to distribute, allot, and assign. As a noun, feng may refer to the due share or assignment one obtains in a social order, and accordingly the duty to fulfill the proper portion of one's social responsibilities. Hence, Ku's translation of Mingfeng Dai Yi as the principle of honor and duty makes perfect sense. It spells out the essence of Confucian political philosophy, according to which true justification for social divisions and distributions cannot be force or free competition of rights and interests, but the rule of ritual and decorum. According to the Song Confucian statesman and historian Sima Guang,
Quan, like a K. Okay, I know that it's not automatic. I know that it's an invention by the Chinese Communist Party to torture the Westerners. But a G is like a K, like in kangaroo.
Okay, all right. Sima Guang. The essence of ritual consists in the teaching of Ming Feng, the great principle of honor and duty. It is only when there are appropriate assignment of roles and positions in accord with the virtues and merits of each person, and when each person is ready to live up to their roles and responsibilities with the sense of honor and duty, that the different functionaries in a society may comply with each other like different parts in an organic human body. Thus obtains the proper order of a society.
A small interruption. Da Yi, okay, one words by words, and he was right to translate by the principle of honor, okay, but Da Yi here, if you take the first meaning of each word, Da means great and Yi means meaning, okay, the great meaning, okay, and here, let's not forget that honor is the aristocratic word for justice, okay, so honor means that epistemologically, you have achieved the dangerous transition from line 3 to line 4, okay, because once again line 3 is the line of the sophist, of the fake democratic man, or of the hypocrite, and you go through the classical education, the aristocratic education, the timeless education, to reach to the first line of the upper trigram or of the heavenly kingdom. Okay, and that fourth line is the line of the true democratic man, meaning the man having the mind powers to uphold justice. Okay, so here the great meaning at the first layer of significance, or the principle of honor, meaning that is the substance coming from the infinite awareness which brought you to the timeless form of beauty, which the practical expression in time is justice. Okay, I'm sorry for those technicalities, but those texts are exactly correlated with the teaching of the house, of the square, and of the roof.
Excellent. Although Ku had never referred to Kant directly in his writings, Kant's famous line did appear on the front page of Ku's translation of Zhongyong. Quote, "Two things fill the soul with always renewed and increasing wonder and admiration, the oftener and more deeply one's thought is occupied with them, the starry sky above and the moral law within me." This seems to indicate a potential influence of Kant's theory of duty and moral law on Ku's interpretation of Confucian teachings.
Here, I would like to throw a spanner. Okay, no, it's not possible, because in Confucianism there is no duty. Okay, even if I agree that he translated principle of honor and duty, here is a clumsiness. Normally, if you understood the teaching of the foundation, the Analects, the Great Learning Pathway, the Mencius, and the Chongyong, let's not forget that the Chongyong is precisely about infinite awareness and episteme. So it cannot be duty, because what you do is the spontaneous shining forth of your inner reality, of the level of your episteme, okay? The vertical lines of King of Wang. So here, I would suggest that Professor Wang Huaiyu has been a little bit intoxicated by the academic environment of the US. I stop my rant.
I've noticed that sometimes a lot of these Chinese scholars, being a bit naive and maybe operating within the Western academic environment, will strive overly hard sometimes to force associations with Western thinkers to Eastern thinkers, and misfire often by wanting to just bridge and make harmony and make that divide go away. They're just so desperate to find that harmony of East and West, and everyone should try to find it, but they get sloppy.
I would say that if they had Plato or Socrates talking to them, maybe,
yeah,
but not with the present Western academics. Okay, I am vain enough to say that kind of stuff.
Would it be true that duty would be more the robotic ritual?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's why I interrupted Matt. It would be a tragedy if the people who would listen to us make an association with duty. But here I would be a little bit a bitch. I would say that the way that the Japanese during the Edo period, 1603 to 1868, interpreted the Tai Yi Ming Feng would be the robotic rituals, precisely because, as with all great concept, it can be read as something within the animal kingdom, which is the stupid imitation, the robotic learning, or at the upper trigram, meaning the shining forth of a behavior because of the true inner substance of your epistemological development. Okay, you always have those both possible interpretations, and I would say that the way you understand it is a direct judgment on you, okay, because you will understand according to your epistemological level.
In my view, so we're back to the text here. In my view, Confucian religion of good citizenship can be best viewed as a synthesis of the role-based contextual ethics as proposed by Ames and Rosemont, and the sense of duty, free will, and moral laws prescribed by Kant's deontological ethics.
Okay, same rant than for the other stuff. Okay, same rant.
Right.
Deontological is a fancy word for duty.
I didn't know that. Okay. Because I thought ontological means like the essence of, or the essence of being, of isness or something, isn't it?
Ontological, yes, but deontological is not the same word that ontological. Ontological comes from ontos, meaning being, but deontological comes from another word meaning duty.
Oh, it's weird that the meaning would change so much with two letters.
Yes, well, yes. Wow, Matt, I don't know. Atheist and theist, it's just one letter, but it's completely different. No?
But yet they're related in some way though, because they're talking about the same thing, whereas this is like duty and being, and it's like, I guess they they participate in the same thing. I'll give it that. I accept.
Exactly, because being is the shining forth of your own nature, and you wouldn't fall down to duty if you don't have being, precisely.
Okay, all right, I give. All right. On one hand, Ku's exposition of the law of gentlemen may supplement the role ethics model. May supplement the role ethics model with a true sense of moral autonomy as the soul and spirit of Confucian personality.
Okay, I would like to stop here. I would like to stop here because he say two clumsy things, but he just corrected himself clumsily. Okay, because I read it again. On one hand, Ku's exposition of the law of the gentleman may supplement the role ethics model with a true sense of moral autonomy as the soul and spirit of Confucian personality. Of course, okay, in a sense that he just say some clumsy thing about the robotic behavior, but he just corrected himself. Well, well, the true gentleman, after all, is not the moral, the duty, the theory of duty or moral law or Rome-based contextual ethic, but it's much more a true sense of moral autonomy as the soul and spirit of Confucian personality. That is the true stuff, okay? And once again, and I'm a little bit pedantic, autonomy comes from two Greek words, autos, by yourself, and nomos, your law, the law, okay? So when you have the being, you would have your own law, not because you fear punishment or because you're greedy for rewards, but your behavior would be right because of the shining forth of your true being, okay? Autonomous, autos nomos, having your own law, your own inner law.
I think autonomy is, I'm so glad you used that word, because without autonomy, then you can have cults and, following things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only with autonomy that you really have your own judgment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay. Because with autonomy, you can even participate to a cult just for fun. Because, for example, you like how they dress, for example. Okay. But you would never go with them into their shenanigans and their stupid speculations.
I guess that's the interesting irony, is that the best cult is the one where every member thinks for themselves. But yes, it kind of breaks down the formula of what a cult is.
Matt, it would be the perfect cult, because each one of the cult would be a gurus by himself.
Right.
What does autonomy mean? Like something automatic?
No, autonomous is from two Greek words. Autos, meaning by yourself, by oneself, and nomos, the law. So autonomy means that you have your own law by your inner being. So
like it's self-righteousness.
So it's the absolute opposite of a robotic imitation.
Like being self-righteous?
No, self-aware. Okay, self-righteous is that you think that you're right, and it's not necessarily a good thing. But autonomy is you have your own inner law, meaning you have your own soul that will decide what is wrong and what is right, not because you obey stupidly or you imitate robotically what others have told you.
Yeah, I'm just using poor choice of words here. I agree with what you're saying, though.
Yeah. So autonomy is the highest possible psychological development, of course. Okay, so we will have to wait for the reader to come back.
All right. Sorry.
Klein, how would you like to say, how would you consider self-rule as somewhat of a synonym for autonomy?
Yeah, self-rule is not bad, because if you have your own inner law, your autonomy because of your own being, the self-rule is an automatic consequence.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, guys. All right. So back to the show here. Okay, so here we are. On the other hand, in contrast with Kant, who took the sole motive for moral conduct in reverence or respect, Achtung, for the moral law itself, for what he stipulated as the categorical imperatives, Ku argued that the true meaning of moral law was indefinable. In light of Confucian teachings, goodwill and moral autonomy are not transcendental ideas that can be established with abstract reasoning and arguments. They are habits of virtue and kindness that must be inspired by the aesthetical appeal of the gentleman and nurtured with the religious feeling of love. Hence, not only are love, social affection, and ritual of solidarity essential for cultivating the sense of honor and duty in an ordinary person, but true liberty and autonomy must also realize itself through conscientious fulfillment of one's family and social roles and responsibilities. Indeed, it is only through what Carlyle called hero worship, through loyalty to and reverence of the ideal of kingliness as personified in a heroic personality, that I can become a kinglet, a gentleman, junsi, which literally means a little king of men, and realize kingliness, that is, true liberty and autonomy of my own being.
Here, Junzi doesn't mean a little king of man. Okay, Junzi, once again, Jun means lord and Zi means a son. So Junzi means a son of a lord, meaning a gentleman. Okay, so here, because the translation a little king of man has a very negative connotation for me. Okay, it is as if you want to lord over people, which is completely not the meaning of Junzi. Okay, the Junzi is precisely the person aspiring to be the master of himself and not the master of anyone else.
Yeah, well, that's the whole idea in the West as well, of the sovereign personality. To be like a sovereign typically is associated with his or her majesty, the king or queen, and that's the historic use of the word sovereign. And all of a sudden, you have this idea that no, every person must become sovereign for a sovereign nation to work. It has to be made up of sovereign people. So yeah, but much more in harmony with this concept that's being developed here. I love how he takes some of these people who I've come to really loathe, as far as Ruskin and Carlyle and blah blah blah, and he's like just taking the truths that they use to be seductive and to be influential and transforming them, into a totally different context to give them real substance. It's lovely. I really like this.
Well, that's the machinations of the fake democratic man, precisely. They're clever enough to take the creations of the true aristocratic man for their own goals, let's say, their own questionable goals.
Yeah. But yet, like he was making the point that even the thieves and criminals must be obedient to some higher goodness, or like cooperation, some decorum, in order for even their deceitful works or gambling problems, whatever, to function in the first place. It requires like some of that, like that principle that would otherwise make society function apply to their own, like honor amongst thieves. So yeah, they have to for their dubious intentions to be successful, they have to wrap it in a variety of truths to be taken in as a poison, right?
Yeah. Well, the higher the specialty of the fake democratic man, once again, you have sub branches, but the big specialty is to make injustice appears as justice.
Right. Yeah, of course. Okay. The essence of Confucian religion of good citizenship, the moral constitution of the Chinese state, is Zhongxiao, loyalty and filial piety. In my view, the moral and political implications of Wu's ideas on truth of humanity and good citizenship and their relation to Kant's deontological ethics and Rosemont's role ethics model can be a fecund field for future studies.
It can be a fecund field of future studies as the study of two opposite stuff that is no compatible at all. But it can be a kind of study because you can study stuff that are not compatible at all, of course. And but here I like very much that text, okay, because at the same time you have true gems coming directly from the true Confucianist teachings, and you have the ramblings of a Chinese person, but having been brainwashed by the present Western matrix, okay? I say the present Western matrix because I think that there's a true Western matrix from Plato, which is healthy, but it is clear that the present Western matrix is not the original Platonic teaching, of course.
Thank you for the disclaimer. Okay. For instance, Wang Jiatang, the first systematic Chinese translator of Ku's English works, criticized, we have Ku's English works. We have Ku's English works. We have to find
we have, for example, the Chinese of the spirit, the spirit of the Chinese people, for example.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got to find this. So this guy criticized Ku's idea of loyalty harshly. Oh, so he may not be the best translator. In Wang's view, Confucian teaching of unconditional loyalty was detrimental to individual personality and creativity as it encouraged tyrannies in Chinese history. It was thus, quote, in itself an impairment to truth and justice, said Wang. Steve Engel, with all his commendation of Confucian ethical philosophy, expressed similar concerns about Confucian political ideas and structures. As Engel stated, there were a number of problematic political consequences of Confucian commitment to sagehood, such as its encouragement for anti-democratic elitists and its endorsement for the political philosophy of rule by men that has made it so difficult for democracy to flourish in China.
Okay, I think here there can be a very interesting discussion, right?
Okay.
And I would like to quote Schiller when he started to write the aesthetical or aesthetic letters on rather the letters on aesthetic education, because he was very disappointed by what happened in 1789, of course. Okay, of course, what he said, a great event has been met with lowly people or with small people. I don't know exactly the quote, maybe you know it better, but it's the meaning of that, I think. And the Confucianist premise is that democracy is not a question of election or of the numbers of people deciding in one direction, because the number of people is not meaningful according to the Confucianist perspective. It's the quality of the people who would propose the policies and so on, which is the center of the Confucianist perspective. And I would like to say that there is something very practical right now that is in application in China. The government is aristocratic, meaning meritocratic by selection. Okay. However, there is a stuff called the Political Consultative Conference of the Chinese people, meaning that the people has the right to express their complaints, and it would be channeled through that stuff that is called the Political Consultative Conference of the Chinese people. And from there, the aristocrats or the aristocratic man will examine their complaints and will offer solutions, and the solution would be discussed with the people. That is the Chinese perspective of democracy. I'm not saying that it is the best, but I say that to stress that there is a difference. And I am not here to say to the West what is the best form of government, because the West has its own tradition. But from the Chinese perspective, democracy is not the number. Democracy is the interaction between the aristocratic man and the people. And there is a discussion between the aristocratic man and the people, and the practical institution right now in China has a name. It's the Political Consultative Conference of the Chinese people.
A couple of problems with what I've just heard, or not problems, let's call them problematics, okay? So, number one, how do you ascertain that these quality people will be the rulers without some means of testing it against a popular view of who is the quality person? Okay, I just want to throw that out there like that. And the second part is, oh, go ahead. Yeah, go respond to that. Let me think about the second one again. Okay. Do you want me to answer to the first part now? Yeah, it just seems to me like it's an automatic problematic that you have to of ascertaining who are the quality people, so and to protect their right to rule. Okay. My short answer is that Eric Lee made an outstanding video called A Tale of Two Cities that is still available on the internet, maybe 10 years ago, that answer in a comprehensive manner to your question, okay? But I want still give my answer here. Mm-hmm. You have exams as a first test, okay? But it's not the only test. The person will start at the lowest level and will be assessed by his peers and by the people that he has served. And when he go to the second rank, the third rank, to the fourth rank, etc., I think there's about 10 ranks. At each rank, he would be assessed by his peer, by his supervisors, and by the people with whom he has interacted as a government officials. I'm not saying that they are not bad apples. They are bad apples. That's why you have a campaign against corruptions and fakelessness, of course. But I would say that it's not because you have succeeded the exam that you are free for all for the rest of your career. At each step of your career, you will be checked by your peers, by your supervisors, and by the people to whom you gave your services. So I would say that no human system is perfect, but there are many mechanisms of assessment. And once again, watch Eric Lee's A Tales of Two Cities. I think that it cannot be better than that. Oh, may just send the link. Is this the classic?
A Tale of Two Political Systems, to be exact. Sorry.
Oh, okay, okay.
I was thinking to Charles Dickens novel.
Okay, I've forgotten the second point I wanted to make, so maybe it'll come up later. Thank you.
No problem.
It occurs to me that Western style democracy, where you deal with the number of people rather than the quality of people, it invites propaganda. You know, it invites that. If you want to, so that there's I mean, that's a essential defect.
Yeah. Well, James Fenimore Cooper had that famous statement or observation that the downfall of America would be through the media and through popular opinion. That was the Achilles heel in the democracy.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. Good observation.
Yeah.
That's basically how most people in the West get educated, is by the media.
Yeah. But I would say, I want to say once again, okay, my main objective by saying what I said during the last 5 minutes is to say that the Chinese have their own traditions and the Chinese have their own system, that they have no intention to impose their tradition or their system on anybody, okay? That the West has its own traditions and its own philosophical theory and political philosophy, and the West, of course, has its own system, okay? But the big thing that I want to say, that the Chinese political system is the business of the Chinese, and the Western political system is the business of the Westerners. That is my big message.
I just remembered the second thing I wanted to ask was about personal sovereignty and political expression, let's call it that. So even though I'm not going to argue that the Western approach is by any means perfect, at least everybody is given some degree of a sense of their own personal political sovereignty because they're allowed to give it expression through a formal process. If you see where I'm coming from here, the idea of connecting personal sovereignty with political sovereignty and that having being allowed to be exercised through the whatever processes are set up politically versus
Yes.
Okay, that's all. I just want to raise that point.
Yes, but I want to reply to you what you said. Because a Chinese person born in China and brainwashed within the Chinese matrix, I would like to remind you that stage 7, 6, 5, 6, 7, and 8 is called by the Ta Shui. Cultivate yourself, put order in your family, assist the state in the governance of the state, and bring peace to the world. And if a Chinese person having sovereignty want to express himself within the state and bringing his assistance to the governance of the state, he is not prevented at all, but he has to prove that he's worthy to be part of the rulers. That is the difference with China. I don't know if you see my
yes, I do. Nuance. Oh, that's a very good answer. Thank you. Thank you.
Cool. All right. All right. So here we are. With sympathies with Wang's and Angle's concerns, I do not think these criticisms about Confucian loyalty and political philosophy are fair overall. Considering the complexity of the issues, I can only make sketchy arguments below to defend Confucian loyalty with a view to rendering Gu's religion of good citizenship as a plausible and promising voice for Confucian political philosophy and cross-cultural moral and political discourse today. First, contemporary liberals can be too quick to call somebody anti-democratic, with a general disregard for the complex meanings of democracy and its own problematic political consequences. Here, it is helpful to recall Gandhi's savvy distinction between true democracy and mobocracy. The former consists in the art and science of mobilizing the entire physical, economic, and spiritual resources of all the various sections of the people in the service of the common good of all. The latter is choked by the internecine strife of partisan privileges and interests. According to Gandhi, democracy, disciplined and enlightened, is the finest thing in the world. A democracy prejudiced, ignorant, superstitious, will land itself in chaos and may be self-destroyed. Smart words from Gandhi there.
Yeah, and I would like to add something. The new political theorists in China coined a new expression for the Chinese political governance system, and it's called whole process democracy. Okay, and the whole process democracy corresponds to the true democracy of Gandhi, And democracy without the home process expression would correspond to the Gandhian mobocracy, okay, meaning a democracy that is much more based on stirring the passions of the people and using the media to brainwash them or to pitch one factions against the other at the service of a plutocracy or at the service of different factions of a plutocracy, which mostly agree on the essential or the bottom line. Okay, I would say that the American plutocracy agree on their bottom line, even if they have, let's say, small ideological differences just for making the circus, if I may be so bold.
I forget where. Okay, here we are. Here Gandhi echoed Ku, who tore apart. Huh? Who maybe it's tore apart rational democracy? No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here Gandhi echoed Ku, who told apart rational democracy from what he called democracy. I don't know how the wording though that he's using. Who told?
Yeah. Because Ku speak and wrote English, huh? So that's why he would make some play of words like that.
Ah, okay. Yeah. So that was intentional. All right.
Yeah, it was intentional.
So who separated rational democracy from what he called democracy? That's
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, yes. That's why I mentioned that he speak and wrote English.
Okay. Ku identified further the crazy form of mobocracy as a camouflaged oligarchy of pampered units. Privileged individuals and groups who manipulate the democratic machineries to advance their own interests through the worship of the mob.
Wow. One moment of admiration for Ku Hongming. He's describing exactly the present American plutocracy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, very insightful. And he was writing this in 1922. Yeah, very cool.
24. 22 and 24, depending on the parts of the paragraph.
Second, considering the danger of mobocracy, it is unjust to impose modern Western schemes of democratic institutions with all its problematic political consequences as the sole universal standard for legitimate sovereignty.
Okay, I'm sorry, Matt, I interrupt you again, okay, because that's one of my big things that I learned that is important for me. The Chinese political system is the business of the Chinese people and of the Chinese rulers. The Western political system is the business of the Western peoples and of the Western rulers. I'm sorry to repeat that once again. I'm sorry, Matt, for having interrupted you.
Oh, don't apply for membership in the Neocon Club, okay?
All right. Instead, what is truly universal of rational democracy is not the mechanical apparatus of popular vote or the superstitious submission to the will of the majority. It is rather the ideal of good government committed to promoting the common good of all. According to Mengzi,
is Mencius, of course.
Oh, it's Mencius. Oh,
yeah, Mengzi in Chinese is Zi is master. So Mengzi, Mengzi is master Meng, and Latinized as Mencius.
Oh, okay. He who gains the confidence of the common people should be the king. Those who gain the confidence of the king should be the feudal lords. Those who gain the confidence of the feudal lords should be the officials. As Ku argues, the spirit of modern European democracy agrees with this classical Confucian ideal of good government, pivoting on the sense of honor and duty, on the mutual confidence and responsibilities of all citizens committed to promoting the common good of a body politic. Yeah, and I guess people should just hold in mind if they're listening on YouTube that the reference to feudalism and feudal lords, this was being said in like 300 plus BC, not necessarily something that would be said in the modern times.
And I would like also to say that when he was speaking of king, of feudal lords, and of officials, you also need to understand that he was referring to epistemological stages, right? Because what Plato called the democratic man, the Chinese system called the commoners. That's line 1. What Plato called the plutocratic man, epistemologically speaking, the Chinese system called the petty officer. And what Plato called the fake democratic man, or the sophist, or the hypocrite, the Chinese call line 3 of epistemological development, the Chinese call the officers, okay? So here, when they are speaking of officials, understand the officers, line 3 of epistemological development. And after that, at line 4, you have the ministers and the lords, okay? So for our modern mentality, rather than speaking of officers or officials and ministers or lords or sovereigns, think about the epistemological stages of the fake democratic man, the democratic man, the true one, and the aristocratic man, okay? And so it is much better to understand it like that, because let's not forget that the Confucian ideal was the perfect society, and that your social rank was matched perfectly with your epistemological stature. So if you take into account those nuances, Mencius' text can be, let's say, acceptable for modern minds.
Lastly, contrary to Engel's suggestion, the real reason why rational democracy cannot flourish in modern China is not the influence of Confucian sagehood, which has had virtually no impact on contemporary Chinese political setup, dominated by the revolutionary mentalities and artificial worship of Western models. It may well be the breakdown of moral foundation of social order caused by the clamorous destruction of all Confucian virtues that culminated in the fanatic demolishing of the Confucian temple in 1966. For the essence of democracy is not so much a political dogma or mechanism. It is rather a kind of personal and social habit, a moral character inspired by the senses of equality, fair-mindedness, tolerance, and proper respect for authority.
Okay, here I would like to introduce a discussion on the notion of zhong, okay, because it's true that all Chinese tradition is based on 2 virtues. I'm not speaking of the hexagram and of the epistemological development, okay, but for the average Chinese person, he will speak of xiao, which is filial piety, and zhong, which is loyalty. Most of the time, as for rituals, loyalty and filial piety are understood as stupid imitation and robotic behavior, okay? As for ritual, filial piety and loyalty can be understood at a higher level when you have the true substance in you. When you are loyal for a person, to an institution, or to the state, but if your loyalty is the offering, the gift from your own autonomous mind, meaning that you have your own law and you are loyal to someone, it is because that someone deserves your loyalty and your respect, okay? So it is not a robotic loyalty if you understand the high teaching. It can be interpreted, of course, like the Tai Yi Ming Feng by the Japanese as a kind of catchphrase to demand robotic loyalty from your subordinates. I'm not excluding that lower understanding, but the true core understanding is that loyalty or that filial piety is a gift from your own autonomous mind, because the person or the institution or the state to which you offer your piety or your loyalty are truly deserving of your piety or your loyalty.
I have to say, at my supermarket, when you check out, they always say, "Oh, do you have a loyalty card?" And I always say, "No, I'm naturally loyal." And I mean, I love the store, you know.
Exactly.
Do you get a chuckle or blank stares?
It's a local one.
Okay.
in Ireland. Yeah.
Ireland? Are you in Ireland?
Yeah, Wexford.
Oh, no way. I would not have guessed. Huh.
It's almost 3 a.m. here.
Holy
Oh
fuck.
my God. Oh
Wow,
my
So I
you
God.
really
can't
love
miss this.
you really love
Yeah.
ideas.
Yeah. But you American because you speak like an American, at least to my ears.
I'm from California,
Okay.
but I moved here about 30 years ago.
Okay, I see.
Wow. Yeah, the accent really you stayed immune from being
Yeah.
infused with the accent. That's not easy to do. All right. Okay. So where did we leave off here? I think it was here, right? For the essence of democracy. I'll just say
Uh,
that.
the only country, proper respect for authority. So it's at the top of the page. It is in the sense that we may appreciate
Oh,
the comments by the British political blah blah blah.
yeah. So yeah, it is in this sense that we may appreciate the comments by the British political philosopher G.L. Dickinson in 1914 that China was, quote, the only country whose civilization has been for centuries democratic, and that he has, quote, never been in a country where the common people are at once so self-respecting, so independent, and so courteous. Dickinson said that in 1914 China?
Yes.
Huh.
Well, China is a country that how can I say it? That it's very rare that someone is neutral towards China. Okay, you have China lovers and you have China haters. So it is very, very rare that you have someone completely neutral towards China. And even during the catastrophic century of humiliation, China had the fortune to have some China lovers.
Cool.
I can't say that I can't say that I love or hate China. For me, like this is why I'm here. It's more of still a wonderment. I I just want to know everything. I just want to know more and more because somewhere down the road, the influence we're getting more Chinese influence every day, and I just want to know more.
Well, Kelly, I don't want to answer at your place because you are an autonomous person, obviously. But when you want to know more and more about a person or a state, it's a kind of love, Kelly.
Um, oh well, it's I guess so. I find myself when I talk to most people around me, like I always get the negative thing, and I end up on the defensive side for China, and it's like I don't want to, but I'm forced to because the people I talk to, it's like everything bad, bad, this, that, and it's like no, no, and it's
Well,
frustrating.
Kelly, once again, I don't want to bug you, but you are not forced. You decided autonomously to do what you have done.
Yes, that is true. It is true. I
No
can't even
one
say
can,
why.
no,
It just is.
yeah, no one can force you.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I'm gonna have to retire. It is getting too
Oh,
late for me.
let's just finish this last paragraph here, and then we'll stop.
Oh, sure.
Okay,
Great.
we're like right here at the end of the section.
Good riddance.
All right, so the American Baptist missionary D.J. McGowan likewise reported in the late 19th century that the most notable feature of the Chinese people was their capacity for their capacity for combing. What? What? This civilized character came from the inherent reverence for authority and law-abiding instincts of the Chinese people, whose docility is not that of a broken-spirited, emasculated people, but results from habits of self-control and from being left to self-government in local, communal, or municipal matters. Thus, were we to place the poorest and least cultured of Chinese people on an island, they would as soon organize themselves into body politic as men of the same station in life who had been tutored in rational democracy. Now I see what he's talking about. I don't get what the word combing per se, but I get the general idea. So yeah, Quan, I mean, would you, in the case of, and Richard, okay, now you're allowed to go. Good night, Richard.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good night, and thank you for coming so late.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed it. Learned a lot.
And by the way, Richard, for your proposition for a presentation, I'm thinking we're on the Sundays we're very booked for the next several months, but maybe on a Wednesday night this could be arranged as a little presentation on some of your ideas, maybe in 3 or 4 Wednesday nights in the future. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
I'll keep you posted on the scheduling. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. Good night.
Bye.
Yeah, right. So that's a fun idea that the local habits of democracy in, I guess, villages and towns is much more advanced than people realize. And yeah, it's a funny thing, eh? Like this balance of providing the democratic tools and to cultivate like a proper wisdom or a love for wisdom in the people, in order, but at the same time like a humility to like not go beyond your capacities, like strive for better capacities, but don't try to act beyond what you're capable of lifting. And I guess that could be so easily abused if you have like a stationary idea of the universe, of like a static idea of a hierarchy that's crystallized, then it could become really ugly. But if you have an idea, as you pointed out in your introductory remarks, and that's been alluded to throughout the text, of a constant perfectibility and a common ability to improve our sovereignty by being better people working on ourselves, then it totally changes the character of what all of this means. That's
we're on an infinite epistemological I can hardly say that word, epistemological journey.
Yeah.
But it's infinite. So
yeah. And the idea is that no one is prevented to be ambitious, but his ambition has to be correlated with his capacities. Because if he's truly autonomous, he has to understand that what he's doing will have an impact on everyone if he's given high responsibilities, right? So that is the basic of morality, after all. Okay, you don't accept responsibilities that you know perfectly that you are not prepared for. So when you say don't lie, for example, which is some basic commandments, well, if you accept responsibilities, political or otherwise, that you are not prepared for, or you're not competent for, well, you are lying. Okay, so ultimately, it's about ethical considerations.
Yeah, this was, I think, my favorite reading so far. Oh, Kelly, yeah, you want to pitch another thought?
Oh, you're mentioning lying, like, I don't lie because I don't want other people to lie, because it just screws things up.
Yeah, sure, but
you're a Kantian.
A what?
Yeah,
a Kantian.
Yeah. Well, I would like to say that it's very good that you don't want to lie, but it's not because you don't lie that the other people would not lie. Okay, so still be very careful.
Well, of course, I mean, it's still there. You can't deny it.
Yeah.
Like people lie.
Yeah. Once again, and I want also to say something before I forget. And it would please the right wing of the Western political crowd, because the right wing of the Western political crowd always promotes small government. Centuries long, if not millennia long, has always been in favor of small government, because at the top you have very few rulers. Okay, and I read once again Ku's text. Spoken, spirited, emasculated people, but results from habits of self-control and from being left to self-government in local, communal or municipal matters. Even under the empire 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, most of the governance mechanism at the level of the villages, of the towns, of the townships, of the small cities, or even of some big cities were under local control, okay? The central control is only for the provinces and the coordinations between big cities. So that is my my cake or my gift to the right-wing political crowd in the West. China has always been in favor of very small government.
And yet they have a billion people.
Yeah, they got 1.4 billion people.
Yes. And that's why it is so important that the rulers impersonate the morality and superior behavior and epistemological development, okay? Because they have to be admired and respected by the population.
You know, it's interesting that because I've been, and today's show on Breaking History, the topic was, well, you know, how Venice grew, how it took over England, turned it into an empire. And so the discussion came about where we were looking at the Magna Carta and the fraudulent myth that was created for dumb Americans to believe that the Magna Carta was the precedent for the Declaration of Independence, which every school book teaches this, and it's not true. And when you actually look at the political context in which the feudal Norman barons, you know, the rebel barons,
absolutely,
they just wanted the right. They wanted like the right to do whatever.
To throw a spanner in the king's mechanism if they need to, okay? Because you already know that, but I want to say that what happened in 1215 was because the year before, in 1214, there was a battle called La Bataille de Bouvines, where John Lackland, with his body, the German emperor, have been defeated by Philippe Auguste, King of France. And after that defeat, most of the barons from England, well, maybe not most, but many barons from England lost their land in France, okay, because the Plantagenets dynasty had lands in France, in the southwest of France, Bordeaux, etc. Okay, the Black Prince was a prince of Bordeaux. Okay, the sons of Edward III. So the Magna Carta was not a step in democracy or in the construction of democracy. The Magna Carta was something given to the nobility so they can throw a spanner into the king mechanism in case he wants to go to war without their permission, because they went to war. The king John Lackland went to war in 1214 and lost his battle against Philippe Auguste, and because of that, the nobility, many people from the nobility lost their land in France. Okay, so the Magna Carta was an oligarchical victory. It was not a democratic victory.
Absolutely,
and it's part of the shameless propaganda of the present oligarchy and plutocracy to make most people believe that it's a democratic victory.
Yeah, and it basically, it's the most, like you said, it's the quality of the timocratic sophist who's just able to make the just appear the opposite. And it's like the most oligarchical coup against the people, as well as any type of authentic qualities of the nation state that could rein in said oligarchy, that wanted the right to do whatever they wanted to do. And you got this whole free man on the land cult that's been built up around the Magna Carta loopholes, around, you know, the issuing that you could say that, oh yeah, if you declare yourself a free man on the land, then you don't have to pay taxes, you don't have to obey laws. And it's kind of true, but if you look at the context in which that occurs within the Magna Carta, it's specifically for the operators within the city of London, within the liveries, It's only for them and for feudal, like the barons themselves, who get that privilege of not abiding by any
Yep.
kind of law.
That's like free trade. I can't go across the border and
What
buy
happened?
something and bring it back and sell it. Free trade's just for the big business, the big giant business people.
Yeah, well, in Quebec, the French people have a marvelous expression, au plus fort la poche, meaning may the strongest wins. So it's the au plus fort la poche is the perfect oligarchical model. And I would go as far as to say that the 1215 Magna Carta is probably the document having institutionalized the victory of the English oligarchy and having contributed to make England as the golden age, not only the golden age, but the golden land for the noble, in the sense of born nobility, for the noble oligarchy. So it's an oligarchy if you count from 1215, which is 8 centuries old. If you count from 1066, the victory of William the Conqueror, is almost 1,000 years old.
Guys, this was, I think, my favorite reading in this whole series so far. I really enjoyed this. So next week, here's the thing: Cynthia and I will be leaving for Asia. We have a conference to speak at in Thailand, and we'll be back on the 23rd. So I'll try to get Dave or somebody like that who's pretty good with managing Zoom to maybe come on, so that way.
It can be that, or we can wait for your return.
That's 3 weeks. If you want to do that, that's okay. Or if you want to keep it going while I'm gone, I would just get, like I said, Magdalena or Dave or something.
I would say there's no rush, okay, and it will also give me a vacation, because I have stuff to do in May too.
All right, cool. All right, let's do that. So let's reconvene back. The Sunday meetings will still happen. Dave or Jerry or Magdalena will be managing those. So that'll be on track, and we'll convene back here for the Wednesdays at the end of May.
Okay.
Of May, it means that we will start on Wednesday, the 29th of May.
There we go. Okay.
I think that I'm back. I think. So I think so. If you're back to Montreal on the 23rd of May, it means that we will start again on next Wednesday, May 29th. Then.
Okay, that's what it is.
Okay.
Good. All right.
So have a good trip to Thailand, and goodbye.
Thank you, and goodbye.
Bye bye now.
See you guys. Bye, Ginger. You missed the show. See ya.